All right, everyone. Hi, everyone. Let's go ahead and start this up again. So we're going to get right after it. So this is part B. And then we're going to go into open. So you guys should have opened it already. Go back where it came from. Now you can go open and you can kind of search for it. But I'm going to cancel this because if you notice, it's already open down here. So you actually don't need to go find it or fish it because it's once you start working on a project, then you can start. You can just kind of pick it from the recent files that are here. This is where all the recent files will live. So if you just worked on something, let's just say over the, on Friday, and then we come back on Monday, just like we just did right now, you can always find it here. So I'm going to click working copy right there, and it'll take us back where we stopped, right? Where we stopped on Friday. So here's our area. I'm going to talk about a little bit about the timeline. So I'm going to go ahead and read you through this tutorial, and let's get to it. All right, we should be finishing pretty quickly. We're just going to start adding to these to this project. So just understanding the timeline panel, right? The timeline panel is this area right down here. Right. And I'm going to talk a little bit about this because this is where you're going to be working a lot. Right. This is the two primary spaces that we're working a lot in Animate are going to be here on the stage and then here on the timeline. Right. Mostly on the stage. So when you're creating your artifacts or you're creating all of the different pieces of your animation. Right. And then, of course, down here in the timeline, which we're working on, this actually is where you adjust different layers and you add different animations to different things. For example, if you want multiple motions, in other words, the sun rising while somebody's walking across, let's just say the grass or on a road, then you're going to want two different areas down here on this. And I'll click around here so you can see where I'm at, where my mouse is at. I'll make it big. There it is. So what you're going to want to do is you're gonna be layering them. So just in case you want multiple movements, right? You don't want necessarily, and that's the reason why I had you do multiple movements on your flip books, right? Because I wanted to show you that different assets, right, different components, and in video games we call them sprites, right? They can move in different areas, right? They can move all these different assets. Like let's just say, like I said, a person walking across a field and the sun going up, showing the passage of time. Those would be two different layers because you have two different controls on how that animation would work and the direction. There they go. But we'll get into that later. Right now, I just want you to look at this area down here in the timeline. I'll click on that one more time. So again, this is I'm going to read you straight from the actual tutorial so that we can kind of get through this a little bit quicker, and I won't miss anything. And that's my fear that I'm gonna I know this stuff and I might miss something, so that's why I'll read things through primarily so that I don't miss anything. All right, so in the Essentials workspace, the timeline panel is located below the stage, which this is, right? The timeline panel contains playback controls for your animation as well as the timeline itself, which plays the sequence of events in the animation from left to right. So it works just like everything else. It comes across the screen, and of course, this is the playhead, right? As Animate movie plays, you're going to see this playhead move across, just like a film strip, okay? As the movie plays, it'll show this blue vertical line. This blue vertical line will move, and let's see if it'll move right now if I push this play button, which is right here. Right. So nothing will move because we don't have anything for it to move to, because it'll also stop at the end of your animation, right? You can set the content of the stage for different frames. All right. To display the frame's content on the stage for any particular time, move the playhead to that frame in the timeline. So if I want to move this over, right, I'll be able to kind of click on the little card. Again, I want you guys to think of your flip books, right? When you guys made the flip books, and I want you to think that all these little things as the card. And I know if you're in class and we're watching it on the screen, it's a little smaller. It's this video. If you're watching it on your own screen, you can actually tell that these are little cards, right? All right, so at the top of the timeline panel, Animate indicates the selected frame number and the current frame rate. How many frames per second? So right now, here's the current frame rate, 24 frames per second, right? And if you click on it, it doesn't do anything. You can't change it from here. You have to remember, we have to change it all the way back to where it says properties way over here, right? because this is where you can change the frame rate. This, see, now you can change it. See where it actually lit up? So some of you are going to want to play with this frame rate. Sometimes you want a little more frames or less frames. Again, 24 means 24 frames per second, which means you would have 24 of those cards to go by in 1 second. So 1001, that's how many frames you would have per second, which is pretty high fidelity if you think about it, right? Because I had you guys make those cards and you just kind of took your time flipping through them, and it still gave you a lot of animation. But if we had 24 frames and sometimes high definition 60 frames per second, that's a lot of frames, right? So if you look at these numbers down here, right, and hopefully I'm magnifying this enough so you can see 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. So that's 40 different frames, right? And just so that you can kind of see where we're at. Okay, I'm actually bringing in, and I don't know if I'm going to be big enough, or maybe I'll make myself big enough, right? But so again, flip book, right? So this flip book, flip book had 30 frames. It's 30 frames long, right? 30 frames. So for this flip book, if I was going to scan each one and put them in Animate and just animate it digitally, I would scan it in and it would only be this long, right? Because here's 30 on here. And I had them create 30 frames. So this is what would show up on the stage right here. And each frame, each one of these, I would take one out and I would put this one on one. And then I would come down here to the stage, click the next one, and then I would scan this next one, right? Let me see if I can show you all of it, right? And so it's gonna be kind of hard, right? Maybe I can do it backwards, right? Oh, sorry. And I don't know if you can see it because I'm at a wrong angle. But anyway, you guys, we did them in class and you saw them, so you get the idea. I want you to understand that each one of these cards represents one frame, right? And that's what you're doing down here. You're actually looking at each frame, and so that's why it's important here. So right now, this we don't have any content, so this blue marker is not going to move anywhere. But so that's why if you look out here, it has number 1, right? And it won't move anywhere because we don't have any data out there. So it's on the frame number 1. So if you ever want to know what frame you're at, you can go to frame number 1. This one, you can actually type in a number. I don't know, let's see if it works. If you can go to, I want to go to frame 25. It won't let you go. There's nothing there. However, if I did pop all of these different frames from this flip book here, I could just type in 30 and it would go, and this blue marker, the playhead, that's what we call it, the playhead. It's taken from old school tape machines, right, where the head would read the tape going over it. We would move that to frame 30. All right. So on top of, besides doing all of these different frames, this area, this timeline also does layers, right? I just finished telling you. So unlike this, unlike your flip books, right, where you actually could do a rocket and you can use the same card to actually put, let's say the rocket and the words and explosions. You would have to actually create each individual one. Now you can put them all together on one layer, but they would all move together, right? And if you want something realistic, you want them to move separate. You want them to come in at different times and so on and so forth. So we would actually have to create additional layers, right? So we hit the add the layer button and so on and so forth. And we're going to work with those in a second. I'm going to undo. I just wanted to show you that real quick, right? So let me read this from this, what it says. It says the timeline portion of the timeline panel also displays layers, which you organize artwork in your comment. At the moment, your project only has one layer because we only have this layer right here, which is the boards, right? Which is called layer 1. Think of layers as multiple film strips stacked on top of another. Each layer can contain different image, just like I was talking to you about, and the layers are stacked in the order of which they overlap each other, so that the objects at the bottom of the layer of the timeline are at the bottom of the stack of the stage. So if you can't see something, it's probably piled in the layer. So even though you're looking at it sideways, layers. I'm gonna give you a couple of different ones, right? So layer number 4 is on top of layer number 3, which is on top of layer 2, on top of layer 1. Okay. So if there was something on level 4, on layer 4 and 3, they would cover up layer 1 because it stacks on top of each other. And visually you can see. So whatever you want on top of the stage to be seen first, you can drag this to the top, and now layer 1 would be on top of it. So you can drag these layers around, and it's going to put them in the order of what you want to see. Okay? And again, this will make a lot more sense in a second. All right. If you have multiple layers, you can only use the view only active layer option above the timeline to show the currently selected layer. Okay. So we'll get to that in a second. All right. So here's the show. Here's the hide. If we click that, notice that our boards disappeared. So this is, you can hide layers, show or hide all layers. So that will toggle it. Watch for that. Okay. That's one of the things that show all layers is outlines. So if you click this, it disappears, but there's an outline there. You can barely see it though. And of course, this big stack over here is show view only active layers, right? And you can toggle that back and forth. So if we have a lot of layers here, and that's the reason why it shrank, it'll just focus on the ones that are you can actually see. If we locked some out or we covered them, you won't be able to see that. All right. So let's talk about changing the appearance of the timeline. You can change the timeline and the appearance to accommodate your workflow. Like what I did right here, and this is kind of not a total correct way of doing it. I kind of, if I wanted to see more timeline, I lift this up, and you can kind of play with it a little bit, right? And then I just adjust the picture, right? Just so I can see more timeline if I was working in that area. But I have to kind of be careful because you have to kind of find that line, and you have to move your mouse really slow until you get the double arrows, and then you move back and forth. All right. So when you want to do that, the short option decreases the height, right? And the height of the frame, and this is going to be right here. So this resets the timeline to the default level, right? So I just lifted it up, and maybe you want to basically get it back to where you can see everything. Just click that, and it'll send it back to the right level. Okay. So now I have a little bit more frames, and I can actually bring the frames out. So this shrinks and grows the frames. All right. And there's a little sub menu here. And again, some of these things are real tiny, like the play button on the right-hand side, the close button on the left-hand side. Some of this stuff is real tiny. So if you look down here, here is a like three little lines. And if you click that, it gives you all of these different options here. All right. Short, medium, tall. If I wanted a tall one, that's your frames get taller, right? Just take a look at over here where the layers, and then I can go ahead and hit short. It makes it tiny. Medium makes it medium. I like it tall, so I'll leave mine tall. Okay. And you can do different things here. Like you can customize your timeline tools and move them around, but we're not going to do that for a second. We're match frames per second if you have multiple things that you import, but we'll talk about that later. But just know that right now, what I want you to learn up to this point is the relationship between the stage and this timeline down here. I'm sorry, hold on, let me get this right. The stage and the timeline down here, and I want you to know that this is where you control some of the frames and how you make it smaller or bigger to your liking. So again, we're just taking a tour. We're just kind of going through it so you can learn all the different places. I know this is tedious, but please stay with the tutorial so that you're not having to guess where things are at. Because you can, even if you don't know, if you don't remember, like, let me go check that little menu that Mr. Juarez showed me. Or wasn't there something over here on this right side that we used to play the video? I just want to throw those things in there. I know there's a lot of talking here, but I just want to kind of just stay with it so you can kind of, when you need it, you can find it, right? That's our biggest thing. Because I'm gonna release you to do projects, and I want you to be able to find stuff on your own instead of trying to hunt it down and getting frustrated, because that's what I don't want. All right, so let's go ahead. It's a good idea to separate your content on different layers and to name each layer, because we can have like 50 layers. And if they're called layer 1 through 50 and you have all these things on here, it doesn't make sense, right? Because you're not going to know what to affect. So it's a good thing to name all the layers. It's never a good idea to just leave the name of the layer 1 or layer 2 or layer 3, right? So let's go ahead and double click the existing layer number 1, and we're going to rename it background. So everybody, let's do this right now. So here we go. We're going to go in here. We already have these boards here. All right. We're going to double click on layer 1, and we're going to call this background. Okay. It could be lowercase or you can capitalize it. I'm just going to leave it lowercase, right? So I'm going to call that background for right now. All right. And now I know that's the background, and I want to leave that at the very bottom because I want it towards the back, right? So it's helping me organize my layers because I know I'm going to bring some more in because we just saw the end of what we're going to be doing, right? We're going to be doing that right there. So we're going to click it. We're going to do background, and I don't want the background to move too much. So what I'm going to do in this spot right here where it looks like a field of blue, I'm going to double click this. And what happens is you see a lock, a little padlock. And what that does is means that I can't move this around anymore. See, I'm trying to grab it and move it, and I can't mess it up. So if you get something perfect just the way you want it, and the backgrounds are pretty good to lock because you're going to be moving everything in the front and you don't want to be moving your background out of place. It's good to lock it down so you don't have to worry about it, okay? So we're going to lock that down, and you can't make edits to this anymore until you unlock it. So it's easy to unlock. You just click it once, right? And unlock it, and then you click it and you lock it again. And of course, you're going to see that little eye, icon that you can poke out if you want. And when you poke out the eye, it means you can't see it anymore. So I'll poke it out, and I'll do it again. So even if it's locked, you can poke it out, all right? It doesn't go anywhere. It just kind of doesn't let you see it. So you can toggle that. It's no big deal. Let's add a layer. Let's continue making our project, all right? So let's add a layer. We're going to select the background layer in the timeline. Okay, we'll select that. All right. We're going to go ahead and choose insert timeline. Okay. So if you want to know where the insert's at, right? If you want to know where the insert's at, you can hit this plus. You can hit you can do new layer. Okay. So you can choose either. There's another way you can go to insert, and this is important because on the test that they want for your certification, they may want it a different way. So you're going to say, I'm importing Mr. Juarez, but they may want you to do it a different way. So here you can go insert, timeline, layer, and it'll create a new layer. You can make a new layer folder, right? Or frame or keyframe. Or you can just come up over here where you hit the plus sign and you can just make a new layer, right? Boom. We just did this a while ago. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to double click this. Yours may say layer 1, but I went to layer 5 because I was playing around a little earlier. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to rename this. I double clicked it. I'm going to stop again. I'll double click it. And I'm going to call this photo 1. And you know what? I'll keep the convention that I don't capitalize anything. So I'll put photo 1. Just all connected, all one, no spaces, and I'll leave it there. Photo 1. All right. There we go. Now your timeline has 2 layers, the background and photo 1, but we don't have anything in photo 1, right? So basically we have photo 1. So we're going to select the top layer called photo 1, which we already selected. If background is selected, it's going to be highlighted blue. So we're going to move over to photo 1, and it needs to be highlighted blue, right? We're going to go back to our Windows library, and guess what? You know it, you guessed it. We're going to choose photo number 1. And it's going to be this little kind of windmill type of. I think it's a ride. It doesn't look like it's a functional piece of work. I think it's a little ride that you ride at an amusement park. So what we'll do here, we're gonna go ahead and grab this library item since it's highlighted blue here. I'm gonna grab this photo from down here and I'm gonna drag it into the stage. Boom, and it appears just like that. Okay, I'm going to hit Command Z, and I'm going to do that again. So for those of you who didn't watch, here, I'm over here, photo 1, click it, right? And I'm going to drag it in to the stage, right in the center, right? So, all right, so there it goes. And it overlaps the background because guess what? It's on top. What did I say if the background is on top of photo 1? Let's unlock it and find out. Boom. I'm gonna move that to the top. Now it disappears, but it's not really disappeared. But if you look over here on this side of the timeline and the layers, the photo is underneath the background, so you're not gonna be able to see it. So I'm gonna go ahead and move that back, and I'm gonna lock it. So now let's see if I can move it below. Yeah, you can still move it below, right? Even though it's locked, you just can't edit it. So if you're missing something, typically you're gonna. This is where it's at. This happens all the time. I get students asking me, I don't know where it's at. I'm supposed to have it here. It's because it's probably underneath the layers. And just to understand that we're talking, it's called layers for a reason, like an onion, right? I can go into Shrek, that there's multiple different layers when you create something cool. As you add more layers and your overlapping graphics become more complicated, click the dot arrow, the icon in any layer to hide its contents. Alternatively, you can hold shift and click the dot in the icon in the layer, and so you can make something transparent, or you can see what your project is like and animate. All right. So here we go. Let's do this again. Let's do it the different way. So we'll go up here. We'll go to insert. We'll go to timeline, and we're going to add another layer. All right. Yours could be whatever. Mine's going to be called layer 6 because I've been already messing around. Yours may be layer 2 or 3. It doesn't matter because we're going to rename it. And you already know how to do it because we just did it again. And what do you think we're going to do here? Yes, absolutely. You're going to rename it photo 2. And since it's highlighted already, we're going to drag photo. Move this back over here. We're going to drag photo 2 into the space. Okay. Make sure I got this right. There it is. Right. I had it transparent. Okay. So now we have 3 layers. Background, photo 1, and photo 2. All right. So as we're working with layers, you can easily delete it by selecting it and then clicking the delete button in the timeline. If you want to rearrange layers and change how your graphics overlap each other, just simply drag any layer up and down. Just like I showed you, you can drag it up and down. If I wanted to delete this layer, I can just either hit the delete key, right? Sorry, over here. Oh, it's not letting me. There it is. You can hit the delete key, and it just deleted that area. If I want to delete the whole entire layer, not just the picture, I would hit the trash can over here, delete. Right now the whole layer is gone. So let's do this again. Hit the file. Well, I will do this again. So I'm gonna hit insert, timeline, layer. I'll double click that. Photo 2. Boom. Then I'll grab this photo number 2, bring it in. Boom. And there it is. Nathan's hot dogs. Right? Famous. And that's on top. All right. So, okay. So far we have background and photo. Now we're going to start working with inserting frames. So I'll be right back and we'll start working with frames. All right. See you soon.